Hi friends, welcome back to Calm in the Chaos Homeschool. So today I'm going to share what my 6th and 7th graders do some independently and some things I do together with the two of them as a small group. So on Mondays and Wednesdays, my oldest daughter goes to a school about 30 minutes away. And so on Mondays and Wednesdays, I take my 6th and 7th grader with me and we go and do school at a library. And so during those days, we have their independent subjects, but then we also have a group time that I do some group subjects with just my two boys. So on the other 3 days, I do my family subjects with all my kids. And so that was my last video. So if you want to see what I do with my 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th grader all together, as well as my morning basket that I do with all the kids, you'll want to go watch my last 2 videos. Today, I'm just going to talk about what I'm doing with my 6th and 7th grade boys. So the first thing I want to cover is math. I don't have anything physical to show you as far as math goes. My boys are doing CTC math. I do not know what CTC stands for at all, but it has been our math since last year. So we have been doing it about a year and a half, and we continue to enjoy that math. My two boys are on 2 different levels of math, and it doesn't equate to their grades at this point at all. They are just at the levels that they need to be at. What I really like about CTC math is it is very mastery based, and so you will have a section of lessons that cover the same sort of topic, but each lesson will build upon itself, and they are just focusing on those skills. But then CTC Math also has reviews, so like a weekly review sheet. So what we do is on Mondays, they do a weekly review on Mondays, and then on the other days, we usually do math 4 days a week. So on the other 3 days, they'll do a lesson or 2 of the new math concepts. So what I like about that is they do keep up on those old concepts with that weekly review. They used to get really frustrated with the spiral approach where they're meant to do a bunch of different types of questions every day. That is really hard for both of them. And so most days we are focused on just the concept that they are learning that day, and they're building upon the last week, last month of the similar concept until they switch into a new unit. So we really do enjoy that about CTC Math. The next thing that my boys both do at their own level is more of that language arts category. So they both have some different strengths, and so they have a little bit of different language arts for some of the things. I'm going to start with the things that both of them do and they're working on at the same level. The first thing is this. Now you probably have no idea what this is because the front and the back has all fallen off. We've been using this. This is our 2nd year, possibly 3rd. No, I think 2nd year, maybe 3 years. I don't know. I don't know when we started this, but this is Queen Homeschool's language lessons for the elementary child volume 2. We did do volume 1 as well. And it is a Charlotte Mason sort of approach. It has picture studies. It has some grammar. It has copy work. It has some writing. It just has a little bit of everything. And so we have been working on this for some time. We don't do any of these things every day. So we might do this every other day, every 3rd day, and they'll do 1 or 2 lessons each time we approach this. My son, who is in 6th grade, he is very nearly done. He'll be done this by the next time I talk to you. My other son is a little further behind because he has some other additional things to do. So he should finish it by the end of this year, or at least very close. Probably by the summer, I'll have him finish up on this. I probably won't be picking this up again, not because we didn't enjoy it. I do like it. However, we have so many different language arts components, and I do like to match the different language arts components to my children and the levels, specifically what they need and the levels that they need. So I like, this is more of an all-in-one type of thing, and I like to mix and match the different components of language arts, if that makes sense. So I probably won't be continuing this just because my kids don't need more to do. One thing that we are not doing very often this year, because we are just finishing it up, is Reading Detectives Beginning. So we had maybe 15 of these lessons left. So I'm purposely only doing it about once or even less than once a week. I think we should be able to finish this I am pondering of going to, this is the 3rd, 4th grade. I am thinking of going to the 5th, 6th grade for the 2 boys next year. They are going to need some more new material next year. This year, I really focused on finishing up some language arts things that we have. So like that language arts that I just showed you, finishing up things like this. It's kind of just been a finish up what we have sort of year. Now you'll notice that this is grade 3, 4, and the next one would be 5, 6. I feel like with the critical thinking company, sometimes it can be quite challenging, and I do have some kids with some struggles, so I have no problem doing things at a lower grade level. It is still going to challenge them and help them to grow. So I will be done this by the end of the year, hopefully not too much longer to be finished this one. The next one is something that we did start this year and probably won't finish. We'll probably continue next year, but that is Editor-in-Chief Level 1. As you can see, this is for grades 4 and 5. So this is teaching different editing skills or teaching grammar through editing. So we have conjunctions, prepositions, interjections, and then they will do some lessons finding the mistakes in those. And yeah, so they'll have several lessons like that, and then they'll come back to a teaching area. Lesson 11, homophones and homographs. And so this is just one that we're doing instead of Fix-It Grammar this year. My kids needed a break from Fix-It Grammar. I do like Fix-It Grammar, but they needed a break, so we decided to go with this. It's a little bit lighter. They are enjoying doing this, so it's just been a nice change to do something different. So they are working on that. Another thing that we are in our 2nd year of using is this reading log from Not Consumed. This is intended for grades 2 through 5. I made a lot of copies last year and I just wanted to finish up what we have. So we will be finished this by the end of the year. And after this, I'm probably going to move into just straight written narration. So after they read, they need to write like a paragraph telling me what they read. This is a little smaller, a little simpler. They can write 1 or 2 sentences. And I think they're getting to that point where they're just ready to move on to some more sentences. So hopefully once we have finished all the pages that I have photocopied for this, so I got a PDF version so I could print as many pages as I wanted. So once we're done what I printed off last year, we're going to move into more of a written narration. So we'll probably alternate oral narration and written narration on different days. And that's what I've been doing as well. So Mondays and Wednesdays, they do oral narration. Tuesdays and Thursdays, they do this. And then on Fridays, I just have them read and they don't have to narrate. One thing that they are both doing that is not language arts, but I'm just going to throw it in here because they are both doing it, is the Big Life Journal. This is the teenage version. And I'm pretty sure we will finish this year. This is a book sort of on mindset, setting goals, things like that. They really enjoyed the one for, I think it was Big Life Journal for kids last year. And when I asked them if they wanted to do this year or to take a break, they said they wanted to do this. So we picked this up and it is very easy to finish this in a year. So we will be finishing this up this year. Another thing that is not language arts, but both of them are doing is typing.com. They both do typing.com. I'd say usually about 2 times a week, just for 10 minutes, just to get better with their typing skills. And that has worked for us. I do prefer to pay to not have the ads, as the ads are very distracting for my kids. In fact, I think I paid for a year, and just today my son was complaining about ads. And so I think the year is up and I need to pay again, but it was very inexpensive. It was like maybe $150 per student per month. So it wasn't a lot for all of my kids for typing.com. So I'll probably go ahead and just pay for another year of ad-free typing.com. We've been using that for several years and it works really well when there aren't ads to distract my kids. Okay, so now I'm going to go to my 6th grader. Something my 6th grader is doing that my 7th grader is not, because he has some other things that he needs to work on, is Wordly Wise. So my 6th grader is currently on book 4 of Wordly Wise. He is almost done. And so I have book 5 here. So I'd say next week he's going to be starting on book 5. You'll notice we just start and stop curriculum whenever. And I was a little worried about doing Wordly Wise with my 6th grader. My 6th grader is very particular about what he does. And if he doesn't like something, he will put up a big fight. And I was worried about Wordly Wise with him, but so far it's been okay. We just do a section at a time, and even section E, which is like a reading comprehension passage and like 15 questions to answer. I cut that up into half so that it doesn't seem overwhelming for him. And then some of the reviews, I give him 2 days to work on as well. So as long as I give him those little small bits, he doesn't complain about it. So that has worked well for me. So some things that my 7th grader is doing that my 6th grader is not is he is working on phonics, and we have been working on this one. So this is Evan Moore Daily Phonics for grades 4 to 6 plus. This is a remedial phonics for older kids. It starts out very, very, very simply, but it is getting more challenging for him. I have him do 2 lessons every day, 4 days a week. So we're going through this pretty quickly. It is maybe a 32-week if you do it once a day, and we do it 4 days a week, but we do 2 lessons a day. So we will be done this in about half of the year. So we are on track for that. And then we are going to go back to Explode the Code. He finished Explode the Code 7 before we started the Evan Moore Phonics. And I just thought that was a good place to put in this Evan Moore Phonics. And then we're going to go back to Explode the Code 8. Looking at our timeline, I'm not feeling like we're going to finish this year, but we will be mostly finished and we can just continue on this next year. So that works for us. Explode the Code has always been a great program for my kids who need a little bit more help with phonics and spelling and things like that. And I'm really glad that we have been going through this. It's just gone back and reinforced some of those concepts for him. So this has been a really great addition if you have kids that struggle with spelling or phonics, writing, all that sort of stuff. This has been a really good one. I do recommend it. And Explode the Code is just a solid program for kids like that. So he is doing phonics. The other thing that he does that my 6th grader does not, because my 6th grader is more of a natural speller, is he is doing spelling UC. We are on level C and part 2. I was hoping to be done part 2 this year, but we are just doing it too slowly for that. So we should get close to the end of this, and hopefully we'll be starting D early in the next school year. I have lesson 29 in here, so we are quite far away from finishing this up. We are probably doing this, well, I was doing this 2 to 3 times a week, and I am now doing it closer to 3 or 4 times a week, just to try to get as close to the end of this as possible. But this is something he doesn't really love. It does involve a lot of writing. He doesn't love writing. He doesn't love spelling. So for him, this is quite a bit of writing, but I think it's fine. We've been doing it 3 to 4 times a week and it's been going fine. So I just kind of sped up a little bit on that recently. Since we are talking about language arts, I'm going to go ahead and let you know sort of some books that we have been reading or we haven't been reading and why we've read it or why we haven't read it. My boys are doing history from Book Shark G this year. We do adapt it, so I'll talk about that a little bit. I'll tell you how I adapt it. However, some of the books we are reading out loud as read aloud. Some of the books they're doing as readers. Some of the books I read to all 4 of my kids. Some of the books we do as audiobooks in the car. So I'm just going to go through this pile of books here and sort of let you know what we have done with it. I mentioned this one in our last video, The Adventures of Sir Balin and the Ill-Fated. This was a read aloud we did right after Christmas. I don't normally read history to all my kids because my 9th grader is not with us for history this year, but it looked like a really short, fun, light-hearted story, and so I just wanted to start the year with something light. So we read that one together as a family. The Silver Branch is a Book Shark G recommendation. I read about a page of this to my boys and I gave up. I don't know. I just didn't like the flow of it. I rarely will drop a book that quickly, but I just had better things I wanted to read. So if you like this book, let me know. If you dropped this book as well, let me know. I just felt like we needed to skip a few books anyways, and I was stumbling and having a hard time with the flow of this book. So I said, forget it. We're going to read something else. So what I did pick up right after that we have really, really enjoyed, and it doesn't have to do, well, it's a little bit about history, but it's more in our science category, Galileo and the Magic Numbers by Sydney Rawson. So this goes more with our astronomy unit, which I will talk about more later, but this book has been really great. We have really enjoyed this, a living book about Galileo. I do recommend this book. This is the book we picked up after I gave up on the Silver Branch, and this book has been great. We have one more session to read this, and then we're going to be moving into our next read aloud. Hopefully this isn't one I'm just going to drop. The next read aloud is a Book Shark G recommendation, The Hidden Treasure of Galston. So we're going to try to read this book next. So this is my read aloud with my boys coming up next. Then there were these two books. These two books were recommended in Book Shark G. What happened with this is the Trojan War. Also, I started reading it and I decided I didn't want to spend that much time going over the Trojan War. We watched videos on it. What I did instead was I found an audiobook that was like maybe a 10-minute summary of the Trojan War, and we did that instead. So this is one that we skipped. It does look good. It does look interesting, but I just decided we didn't need to read that one. And then this one, same thing. I think it's probably, is it written by the same author? You can see it looks very similar. What I did with this is we are reading Mary Pope Osborne's Greek Myths in our morning basket. And so I thought we'd just go ahead and skip this one as well. So I don't think it was bad. I'm sure I did like the first chapter or two that I read of this. I just didn't want to spend that amount of time reading that out loud to my boys. So these are two that we also have skipped. All right, next I have 4 books that my boys have been doing as readers on their own. So Mystery of the Roman Ransom. We did read one of these mystery books by the same person our first year, maybe our first year of homeschooling or second year of homeschooling. So it's just a mystery set in Roman times, obviously. So that was fun. That's a mystery. And this is also a mystery, the Ides of April. So both of my boys have read those too. I think they enjoyed both of them. And then right now, my younger son's still in this one, Black Horses for the King. I don't know how he feels about it, but my 7th grader finished this one. My 6th grader is currently working on that one. And my 7th grader has moved into the King's Shadow. So as you can see, we are kind of moving out of the Roman Empire and moving into more medieval times. That's where we are in our history right now. So those readers are the ones that my kids write about when they're using their not consumed reading journal. So they'll write about that, or they'll give me an oral narration on what they have read. So one final thing that they do more independently is their Bible. So right now we are using Alpha and Omega life packs. So what I did was I purchased the 5th grade packet, and it came with 10 life packs. And then I'm just letting my boys pick these in any order. There are some questions that will refer back to like Unit 7, Unit 6, but like very minor, like maybe 2% of the questions. So when we hit one of those, I just cross it out and we just move on. So these are pretty themed. So they have different themes. This one is about God, the Bible, and living for God. And so I just let them pick. So I just take out the 10 and say, which one do you want to do? And they just pick the one they wanted to do. And then they have just been working through. So these Bible lessons are definitely more in depth than any Bible my kids have done before. I picked the grade 5 just because of the level, how the level looked. It looked appropriate for what my boys would need. But this goes quite in depth into Bible. So I'm not sure how much they are picking up on, but they are definitely learning a different way of learning, reading, finding information, filling in the blanks, answering questions. This is not something that we do a lot in our homeschool. And so I feel like they're probably learning stuff about the Bible, but they're also learning a different way to learn. And so just more of a traditional way. So I'm not going to say that they love this, but it has been serving its purpose for now. And I think we're going to continue. We might be able to finish all of them by the end of the year, since they are each doing half of them each. So I don't know. We'll see how this goes. I'm not sure what I'll be doing once we have finished up all these life packs. They are finishing up their 2nd life pack right now and moving into their 3rd pretty soon. Okay, so that concludes all the things that they do more individually, independently on their own. And I have my rolling bin over here. You can't see it, but I have my bin that I bring to the library. Generally, it just sits in the back of my van. But because of snow days, we haven't been going to the library, so I had to bring it in. So Mondays and Wednesdays, this is some of the stuff that I do together with my boys. So the first thing we generally do when we start our together time is we watch World Watch News, which I talked about in my morning basket video. I always do that with all my kids. And then when I'm with my boys on Mondays and Wednesdays, we watch World Watch News. Great way to just kind of get together, come together, and kind of set the scene for learning together. And so that is something that we have been doing. After that, we have been doing different devotionals. We started with Starting Strong. That is a sunlight recommendation at some level. I don't know, maybe D. And I have quite a few of not consumed Bible studies. I bought like a 6-pack probably 3 years ago. And so I had a few left over. So I decided we'd just go through one of these with my boys. So we are doing Do Right, Learning to Make Wise Choices in the Face of Temptation. So we just do one lesson of that. We really do enjoy Not Consumed around here. It is sort of my go-to Bible curriculum. I will link them below if you're interested in that. But we have done a lot of these, and we're doing one with our morning basket. So I do one with all my kids, and then I'm doing this one with my boys. So the next thing I usually do is history, and I need to go back a little bit. So on our drive, dropping my daughter off at school and then picking her up and driving home, we have about, I'd say about 25 minutes each way. So that's a good solid 50 minutes each time we make that trip. So Monday and Wednesday. What we normally start with is we listen to the audio of A Child's History of the World. We'll listen to one chapter of this. So this is not recommended in Bookshark G. This is recommended in a much lower version of Bookshark. However, they recommend Story of the World, Volume 1 and 2, and we've already listened to that. So I wanted to pick something up that we haven't done, that we might enjoy, and we have been enjoying this. It is very simple, and each lesson is maybe about 10 minutes. So we usually spend our first 10 minutes doing that, and I'm just lining that up with what we are learning for history. After we listen to our history lesson, then I turn on the audiobook that we are currently listening to in the car. So we have done like A Long Walk to Water. We are working on the Wing Feather series, The Dark Sea of Darkness. The first one, been on and off that one. We only get it for 3 weeks and then it gets returned. And so we have kind of a rotation of things. We finished Hidden Figures, which is part of my astronomy unit, which I will be talking about in a minute. So we really enjoyed that one. That's a nonfiction about African-American women who helped with the development of eventually spacecraft, but airplanes in World War II and then up into spacecraft. So that was really interesting. Before that, we were listening to A Golden Goblet, and we are waiting for A Single Shard. So that is the next one we're going to be listening to once we get access to it. So we just finished Hidden Figures, and A Single Shard is next in my plan, and we're listening to the Wing Feather series while we are waiting for that. So that's what we do for the rest of our car ride, and this has worked out really well in getting some of our read-alouds out of the way and just making that trip much more enjoyable. The next thing we do after our devotions is we continue with our history. So I'm reading out of the Kingfisher History Encyclopedia. I am just following the Bookshark G plan. Basically, I just typed up the readings and I'm just checking it off as I go. So I will just read usually 2 or 3 pages. I try to do at least a lesson or a lesson and a half, or 2 lessons if I can, since we only do history twice a week. So I feel like we've been keeping up a pretty good pace with that, and then with the Child's History of the World, and that is our history. Occasionally, if we have a little extra time, I will play some guest holo history YouTube recommendations to add on to our history. The next thing that I do with my boys is my own astronomy unit. So we are doing Discovering the Wonders of the Universe, a journey through astronomy. This is a unit I created myself. My 9th grader has gone through this unit last semester. She went through it and she really enjoyed it. And I decided I was going to use this with my boys. We finished up guest holos, actions and reactions, and have recently, maybe in the last 2 months, moved into this. So this is a literature-based unit. I have a whole bunch of spine resources. I have Christian resources if you want to add Christian worldview. I have some experiments, I have add-on fiction, nonfiction, and then I have lists of YouTube videos. And so We've been going through this. I'll usually read from 2 of the resources and then we'll watch a YouTube video. And then every other day that we do astronomy, I am having them write down in this draw and write notebook that I also created and I sell on Amazon. So they are drawing something they learned on the side here and then writing about, I say 4 sentences. So we've done a few pages here. So this is just once a week. We just do a little bit of what they have learned. So they each have their own notebook and record what they're learning there. So some examples of the spine books that we've been reading with this unit recently. We have The Planetarium. This is a gorgeous book, really inspirational for me in the development of this unit. We have DK Eyewitness Astronomy. This one I have found we cannot read all the words. So what I generally have been doing is I'll read this main paragraph here, and then I have them pick one of the pictures each, and I will read the little section that goes with the picture that they're interested in. So that's how I've been using that. I could not read all of that to my boys. Their attention spans is just not that much. One other book that is a spine right now is Amazing Space, a book of answers for kids. Now, what I've decided with this one is I feel like between my other spines, I don't necessarily need this one. I might read this one if there are no other spines scheduled, but this one has been just a little more tedious for me and my boys. I feel like this is a good book for some kids who are just want some of the nitty gritty details. It does have some really good details, but this might be something I would just like use optionally with my kids. If they want more information, then they could use this one. But the other spines have been covering things really well, especially since we are also using the Christian resources that I recommend. So that just adds some more. If you're not using the Christian resources, you might want to keep with the Amazing Space book, but we are adding in the Christian resources. So we're reading Exploring the World of Astronomy by John Hudson Tinner. I just love these books. These are middle grade, middle school age, like textbooks, but they're really written in that living book style. He actually writes a lot of cool biographies about scientists. And so I do try to pick those up when I can. So really enjoy his work. So we're reading that. And then we're also reading the astronomy book by Dr. Jonathan Henry. Now this one is definitely the Christian perspective, which I do want to include with my kids. I don't mind talking about the secular perspective, but I do want to add in what Christians believe and different viewpoints of astronomy, how the earth was created and things like that. I will say that this book is a bit older. I would say they're still talking about Pluto like it's a planet. So this one is older, but we have been enjoying this mix of books. The experiment book is this one, Astronomy for Every Kid by Janice Van Cleves. Now, I haven't really gotten to this just because I don't love experiments. I don't love activities. We're not at home, so it's really hard to get at this. So we haven't really been doing that. But then there are other books scheduled in like this. So Seymour Simon, I really like his books. We have Our Solar System here that I'm going to be reading shortly to my boys. But I really like the pictures and the way he explained things in his books. And then I did mention that the Galileo and the Magic Numbers is one that I have scheduled in my astronomy unit. Really, really, really love this book. And I did read that book quite a while ago, and I knew I really wanted to include that. So I think that is pretty much what we're doing in astronomy. I mentioned Hidden Figures, listening to that on audiobook. They all really enjoyed that. So if your kids like nonfiction but science history sort of books, that one was highly recommended. It is about women, but my boys really enjoyed it. I do think that there is a video or movie or something on them, so I need to look up and see if that's appropriate for my kids. But we would really enjoy watching that if that is a good fit for my family. So we are not too far into this unit yet. We are approaching week 3. We have learned about what is astronomy, the history of astronomy, optical principles, the telescope and observatories, and that's sort of where we're at. And then, like I said, we watch YouTube videos. Usually I'll watch one of these YouTube videos each time we talk about astronomy. So I will read from 2 of these books generally. We'll watch a video, and then depending on the day, they will record information from one of the books that we have read. I let them copy or they can narrate, and I want them to draw a picture and an illustration, and I want them to have some labeling on there. And that's what we do for just sort of their output. I will link that astronomy guide below. It is intended for 5th through 8th grade. I mentioned my 9th grader used it last year. She is not quite working at her grade level, so that is perfect. It worked out really well. She did it independently. She really enjoyed it. She was the inspiration behind my creating this unit. She loves astronomy, and so I wanted to make a literature-based sort of astronomy for her, and so I created it for her, and then I kind of polished it up. And so if you're interested in that astronomy guide, take a look below. Tons and tons of books scheduled. A lot of the books we get from the library. I'd say the spine books you probably want to pick up, but a lot of the other additional books you can get from the library. And so, yeah, so check that out if that's something you're interested in. So while we are watching our astronomy video, that is when my boys will usually eat their snack. And then sometimes we watch World Watch News at that point. It just depends. And then we move on to our next part of our group work. This is more of a language arts section. So one thing that we have been doing throughout the year has been Beowulf grammar. So we've been doing this together. This has been a lot of fun. It is a hands-on approach. Okay, so this is the teacher guide, so not that exciting to show you, but it is a hands-on approach to grammar. They have so many different activities and just ways to teach it. There's cutting and pasting, there's matching, there's filling in the blanks, there's circling, whole bunch of different ways to learn grammar. Now, I mentioned I am not a huge activity. I don't love activities, but these activities are very simple. Like I just need to have some scissors and some glue, and we can do most of the activities. And my boys, even though this is intended maybe for 2nd through 6th grade, my boys being in 6 and 7, more in the higher grades, this has not been boring for them. They have really enjoyed it. It's added a nice variety to our homeschool. So this is book 2 of 4. We have just started book 2 of 4. This is about how thick they are. And so it does come with a lot of pages. We will probably be doing 3 and 4 next year is my guess. We have been pausing this ever so often because I have been trying out Pam Barnhill's language arts together. And so as you can see, this is a single shard. She reached out to me maybe 2 months ago to see if I would like to look at a bundle that she has, and if I wanted it, then I could review it. So I do have that. I have a video on her Language Arts Together bundle. So I will stick that in the description box below if you want to take a look. But I really got the bundle because she had a single shard. So this is intended for you to be able to use one book with your kids grade 1 through 8 and have different language arts like together as a group. And I just got it for me and my boys. So once in a while we'll pause Beowulf grammar and we will include this. So I did this with, there's a tarantula in my purse. We did that just to try it out. It was lots of fun. And right now we are sometimes doing a single shard just to get prepared for when we do have that audiobook in the car. But we use this very basically. She has a 4-story chart where we talk about character, setting, ideas, something like that. And we write down the characters, the settings, the ideas, and I can't remember what the 4th one is. We're writing down the vocabulary. She has a section with vocabulary cards. We're just writing down the vocabulary and their definitions. There are some questions that you can ask about the story, which I might do once we start listening to the story. And she also has a PDF file with language art components. So there's copy work and there's different levels of copy work. So there's level 1 copy work, there's cursive writing, there's level 2 copy work, which would be more, there's cursive writing, there's filling in the blank, there's dictation. So very Charlotte Mason approach to vocabulary. And so when we are doing this, we don't do the Beowulf grammar. Yeah, so we kind of jump back and forth between those. So we are kind of doing a single shard, but we haven't been doing a lot of it since we don't have the audiobook yet. Okay, so I am on my last thing that I do with my boys together, and that is IEW's Fables, Myths, and Fairy Tales, the writing lessons. As you can see, we are about halfway through this, even though I was hoping to finish it this year. We are making good progress on this. I only do this twice a week. This is intended to be done at least 4 times a week, and I think most people would do it maybe faster, but 2 times a week is sort of what works for us. My 7th grader in particular doesn't really like writing but this pace has worked really well for us. And so on Mondays and Wednesdays, I will do the next step in this. So my boys all have their own books here. We are going through the IEW method, the keyword outline, the different methods. We are writing from pictures right now. I just love the structure of IEW. It does really help, especially with my 7th grade boy who really struggles with getting his ideas on paper. My 6th grader, he is a little more creative. He more struggles with keeping with the structure, but my 7th grader, he really does need that structure. And so even with my 7th grader, I adapt it. So we will do the first day, we will read through the passage. We will maybe do, if there's a 3-paragraph thing to do, we will do 2 paragraphs of the keyword outline. If you don't know what that is, you'll have to go watch my video on this. I have a video on this particular level, so go ahead and go watch that. So we'll do about 2 of those paragraphs together, usually with my 7th grader, and my 6th grader will do it on his own. And then the next day, we'll probably do the 3rd one, and we'll do some of the style activities. So they have different style activities. So we'll do that. The 3rd day, we might finish up the style activities and start writing maybe the first paragraph of the 3 paragraphs. And my 7th grader will dictate to me, and I will write out the paragraphs for him. My 6th grader can do that on his own. Then the next time we might do the last 2 paragraphs where my 7th grader dictates to me and I write it out. And then we'll go through and we'll look over their work and see what we can do to make it better. And then my boys usually have been typing out their final draft. And so as you can see, with 2 days a week, that takes about 2 to 3, usually 3 weeks to complete 1 lesson. And we probably have close to 10 lessons left. So we're not probably going to finish this. Well, we're not going to finish it this year, but we are going to get as far as we can. And that has been the pace that works well for us. We did start this last year, but I feel like we are moving a little faster now. The lessons are a little bit longer, and so definitely getting more output from my boys than I have in the past. So that is IEW. That is our final thing that we do together with my boys on those Mondays and Wednesdays. So I know that sounds like a lot. It is, but we really are very productive on those days. We are in a library. We have booked the little conference room. Usually we have the conference room. If we don't, it is definitely not as focused, as my boys have a hard time focusing. But when we are in that room, we can be so focused. We do take breaks, but we just go through these things very, very quickly. We don't spend more than 20, 25 minutes on any of these things. And that's just the pace that works well for us. So we can get a lot done, but we just have to do these in very short little spurts. And I make sure I have variety in their day as far as moving from one thing to the next. So that is what I'm doing with my 6th and 7th grader boys. Come back next time to see what my 8th grader is doing, what my 9th grader is doing. Go back and watch the last 2 videos if you want to see my morning basket, my family subjects. Thank you so much for coming today, and I hope to see you all in a future video. Bye, everyone.